Great. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Raising the New Earth. Hi, Noah. How are you?
Hey, Brooke, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
Um, yeah, so today's episode, we thought it would be helpful to um do an episode on kind of like tips, so more or less like a list of different things that you can do to reset your nervous system. Um, so we've talked a lot about stress and how stress impacts our body. We've talked about mental health. We've talked about meditation because that is a great mind body practice. But just with as much as we're exposed to in our modern lives with things that can kind of knock us out of balance and get us in a dysregulated state of our nervous system, we just thought it would be a really great episode to just talk about. We have kind of like a list of 10 things that you can do to help to get yourself in a regulated state. So, just to kind of back up on the nervous system, we have two different pieces of our nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And when we're in the parasympathetic, that's kind of the rest and digest. And the sympathetic is the fight or flight. And so we tend to feel often that we're in kind of that fight or flight piece where it's harder to respond to stressors, or we respond in a dysregulated state. So oftentimes it's like finding those ways in our day. And I think that's another thing that, as we were kind of creating this episode, that a lot of these should feel like ways that you can kind of naturally have them be a part of your day, rather than as like something that's another thing on your to-do list, which essentially doesn't really add to the idea of, less stress. So as we're kind of running through these, maybe just think of how you could incorporate it in these in your day. And a lot of them kind of build on each other. And once you start incorporating one thing, it's easier to kind of do other things as well. So yeah. So
Yeah.
with that, yeah, anything to say there just
And
from
it's
an intro?
important to understand the primary function of the autonomic nervous system is really to maintain this stability of internal environment by it mediating activities like digestion, temperature control, blood pressure, even emotional expressions like palpitations of the heart, clammy hands, blushing. These are all observable signs of the sympathetic nervous system. And this is how you know the sympathetic nervous system is engaged. And so we are looking to get into a higher consciousness of processes that can influence the autonomic regulation via the neocortical, and integrating relaxation techniques into the course of our daily life can really help the nervous system, and to help us to reduce the stress that is found to be the cause of a lot of chronic illness disease.
Yeah, absolutely. So well said. Yeah, and especially with the autonomic nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
bringing that up, and yeah, that there's signs that you have the sympathetic nervous system engaged. Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah. So, with that, one that I kind of thought of first, or I think we both, and we talk about this a lot in the podcast, but it's just getting in nature. And there's a few different pieces of that that really help. And it's not just, I think that like sometimes you can say get in nature and it's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. But like there actually is so much real science and a real reason why it's such a good tool to use to bring you back into the sympathetic nervous system state. And talking specifically about grounding, which another phrase for this is earthing, but it's essentially getting a direct connection between you and the earth. And the idea behind it, or not the idea, this I would say the science behind it, is that essentially there's like a limitless source of electrons that the earth provides when we are in contact with it. And essentially antioxidants, we've all heard of that. They are electron donors. So one of the best electron donors when it has all of these electrons is the earth. It's right under our feet. So, our body has kind of over the past 50 years gotten more out of contact with the earth. I didn't even realize this, but until 1950s, we didn't have rubber on our shoes like that. When before we had rubber on the shoes, anytime we were walking, we had that contact with the earth. And then when you go even back even further, and people were sleeping on the earth, and there was a constant connection literally to the earth, literally getting the ions, these negative ions up into your body and giving yourself that master antioxidant dose. So any way that you can find to just get yourself on the earth, especially during the summer months, but really even in the winter, just kind of, being able to maybe going outside and just sitting down. If you don't want to take your shoes off, totally understandable, but just sitting down on the earth, your clothing is okay, as long as it's, not something like rubber that you can get that supply. And then with that too, there's also sunlight, and that has its own benefits. Yeah.
So absolutely. The outdoors offers us healing, true healing. And we just had Dr. Catherine Clinton on our podcast last week, and she talked about how every single cell in our body has a circadian clock, circadian rhythm, and every single biological action in our body is dictated by the relationship with the sun and the light. And so when we're not fully connected to the source, to our nature, to that place, this creates a constant irritation to our health. And when we're finally able to connect and realign that relationship with the world around us, this is when we find true health. And she gave the example of, if you go to a PCP, allopathic doctor, and you say, I have a heart condition of some sort, a cardiovascular disease of some sort, that allopathic doctor would not think about you being in the sun as being a catalyst for healing, but will rather, get you some more tests or pills and try to not resynchronize you to the natural rhythm that is available freely to us all. And so, yes, connecting with nature and natural light is helping through the serotonin, the producing that we have in the sun, the mineral rich soil, the oxygen producing plants that are surrounding us. And we know that low serotonin levels can affect your mood. And I see it a lot as a nutritionist for mental health population. And I always say, do a session on the go. Let's get outside, because most of them are, isolated in the mountains, and they're surrounded by beautiful trees, beautiful scenery. So going outside, doing things outside, especially if you live in a nice weather environment, is essential and is associated with lower depression rates. We have looked into studies that attribute the relationship between psychiatric symptoms and seasonal variations in sunlight. And you see that, like we have, around winter, we see more depression. Why? Because there's lower vitamin D. Most places, around will have less sun, and that lack of exposure can incur changes with the serotonin levels. And another study found that if you spend time in the forest, it can lead to a decreased blood pressure. So those that suffer from high blood pressure, connecting with nature, that could really help relax the autonomic nervous system and get into your parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah. It's such a amazing free tool that we have available to us, and something that we should all strive to take advantage of a little bit more.
Yeah. Whenever there's good weather, like I do my breakfast outside, and the kids started asking me, why do you eat outside? Because I want to connect with nature. I need to connect with nature. I need to see it. I need to be in it. And so we kind of started having our family meals outside. We put a little umbrella if it's nice weather. And it just, for me, it changes the entire mood of the day. I start the day feeling very grounded.
Yeah. Well, and even the, getting your eyes into the actual sunlight. I mean, when it's up, way in the sky where it's harder to like gaze as much in the sun, but there's also science behind when our eyes are exposed to morning light that there's so many benefits there. So first thing in the morning is probably like the best time if you can get yourself out and start your day that way. Yeah. A second tool that I like is tapping. It's also known as EFT or emotional freedom technique. I know that and with all of these, well, I would say maybe not the nature one, but with some of these, everybody's going to find their things that they enjoy or not. I think that this can feel a little bit overstimulating for some people. I like tapping, especially for times when I feel like I'm getting really nervous about something, like if I'm speaking in front of a large group of people. I know when I first started teaching yoga, I used tapping some because, I really felt that nervous energy. So essentially what tapping does is you're literally tapping certain pressure points. And then this helps to activate the relaxation response and move us out of that fight or flight mode. So, I like it. A lot of people use it like very frequently to even like reset thoughts and behaviors and stuff that they have. But I think especially if you find yourself in places where you're like, don't know how to handle like a nervous reaction where your nerves are just, overactive, that tapping can be a really nice way to help with that.
Yeah. And you can find resources on YouTube. Just Google tapping. They'll show you how to do it.
Yeah. It's pretty easy. Like there's just different points and you can like say different affirmations as you tap, and you can, at least for me, I feel that I can just instantly calm when I do that. So the third one, and we've talked a lot about this as well, but just deep breathing, the power of taking a breath. And even if that is just one deep breath, it can do so much, so beneficial. It just helps to oxygenate the blood and then the nervous system. So, just finding that pause in your day and doing breathing exercises is great, even for 1 minute.
Yeah, any breathing. And I use an app called Breathe, and I actually use it daily. I kind of like the circle with the thing that goes inside. And you can also program your own breathing, but they offer you, I think it comes with 4 different breaths, and you can do more cycles of breath if you wish. But that is how I start my morning. I start my morning with my lemon water, outside, breathing, crossing my legs, sitting in nature. And I know I'm setting myself up for success, because anything that comes after that, my nervous system is ready. It's balanced. It's ready to approach anything that needs to be approached.
Yeah. And this is another one too, where if you feel like in your day, you're feeling a little bit more on the dysregulated side and just kind of responding to stimuli in a kind of stressful way, that this can be a really nice way to reset. And I guess the one thing that I will say, we often kind of think of, well, the way we do breathe is shallow breath right here. It's really important to allow breath to come all the way down deep into your abdomen, fill up all the way down, and then all the way exhaling it out. And that's where you're going to, activate the parasympathetic nervous system, is by that deep breathing. So.
And you can also listen back to the episode we had with David Bannock about breath. He took us on a nice journey. You can always refer back to that.
Yes. Yeah. And actually give exercises. He gives exercises that you can do, which is awesome. Yeah. For another one, and I think that this is one that or at least I feel like I need to incorporate more, but it's either singing or chanting or laughing, like anything with your vocal cords like that you're using, you're actually activating the vagus nerve, which the vagus nerve is what does activate the parasympathetic, the rest and digest nervous system. So it connects to your vocal cords and the muscles at the back of your throat. And then you're physically stimulating that through those activities. And I just love that, because it's like we know intuitively that like spending time with friends and family and laughing and maybe singing, like it makes us feel good, and that there's an actual real physical reason to why that feels so good. So
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's been used for centuries through, different tribes that use that as prayer for rain or prayer for someone, or, you know, singing is magical. And as an artist and as a singer, I know that when I use my vocal cords, it's almost like I'm using a different, like my soul comes to play. It's no longer my heady, space, scientific space, but it is my soul that is singing. It is my angels that are singing. So there's nothing quite like it, at least
that,
for me.
yeah. Well, and that made me realize too, because I'm not a singer at all, but I do enjoy like getting in my car and singing to the radio. So it's like, even that, I can
Yes.
understand how that's a fantastic way to just like decompress, literally, just by singing. So yeah, you don't have to be a professional, beautiful
No,
singer like Noah
you don't have
to
to be.
use
Just
the
sing. Just
right,
sing.
just sing.
Just sing.
Yeah. Do you want to go through a few of them, Noah, that you had specifically
Yeah, so we
worked
also
on?
mentioned, we included sleep in this one also as part of helping your, nervous system. And we did do an episode about sleep. So again, you can go back and listen to that. But just a few notes if you didn't listen to that. So sleep is more than just time to rest our eyes. We know that if you get a full night of sleep, it rejuvenates the immune system by strengthening any fighter cells. It balances the insulin. It improves your gut health. So the sleep is the time for the repair mechanism of the brain. It allows us to have lower blood pressure. It calms the sympathetic nervous system. And so if someone wakes up and say, I feel, hangry, I feel out of balance, the first question that I would ask this client is, how many hours did you sleep? So if the person would say 6 or 7, I will say, try 8 or 9. For me, at this season of my life, I need at least 8 hours of sleep. I just do. Prior to that, I felt like I had enough sleep for me to function during the day, but at this season of my life, I need more. And so I kind of know myself. If I have long nights at the studio or long nights of studying or whatnot, I know I'm going to be waking up more tired, more sluggish. And so that's when we're going to touch on the dietary and nutrition element, so we can supplement that and help our body start the day properly.
Yeah. And if you go back to that episode, it's also so important to like find ways to have good sleep hygiene, meaning that you're not like looking at screens right before your bed. You're not eating big meals right before bed. So things that are going to help you get a good night's sleep, because, and we all know that just because if you try to make it to bed by a certain time doesn't necessarily mean that good deep sleep is actually going to just happen naturally. So
yeah, and that leads us to the next one. So you can talk about the digital detox, the 3-2-1 routine.
Oh, yes. So just, if you can, our nervous system is extremely overstimulated by our devices because they're in our hands all the time. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is that it emits blue light, which and you have blue light glasses on now,
Yeah.
right now. Yeah, so it's really good to wear blue light blocking glasses, because that is one part of the overstimulation, talking about the different kinds of light. Blue light is not a natural light. It's not like the sunlight or even like the lamps, like a lot of our LED lights even are not good for us from a nervous system perspective. So a digital detox, like whatever that means for you, like that could be like just certain hours of the day you want to make sure your device is away. I had told Noah, and I thought this was brilliant and such a great way to remember, and this rolls into the sleep thing too, but it's the 3-2-1 rule, where 3 hours before bedtime, stop eating. which you could even argue that that's even like a little bit too close to bedtime if you're doing like intermittent fasting type things. But 3 hours is a good baseline start. 2 hours, stop drinking water or any drinks, because you don't want your bladder to be activated and stimulated when you're trying to go to trying to sleep. And then the one is no screen time an hour before bed. So it's just an easy way to remember 3, 2, 1 as a way to set up yourself for sleep. But in general, too, I think that like putting your phones away, if you think about it, you know, we all get like the news notifications, and then you can go through social media and you're always getting things of like what's happening in the world. And so we've never been like, it feels like we're in a time where it's just crazy, like things are, you know, bombarding us all the time of like this and that and that. And you could argue that there is a lot more chaos in the world, perhaps, but I think it's also that we're just hearing about every little thing all the time, where we never had that right at our fingertips. So just finding like good hygiene around your devices and your connectedness to that outside world is important.
Yeah, and I do have EMF glasses. I have an EMF pendant. We did talk about it previous episode with Dr. Catherine Clinton about, you know, not having just one thing to help us, but establish a relationship throughout the day. It's like someone who's trying to lose some weight and wants to eat healthy. So, you know, that person would say, okay, I had a really great breakfast, and then the rest of the day is shitty. So this is exactly what it is. Like, you have to be aware. And like you said, Brooke, in our meeting, that nothing exists in silo. So yes, wear the EMF glasses, but monitor the time that you spend online. Do your kids really need to be on the tablet for 3 hours? I know our kids do have a tablet at home, and not only I make them put glasses on, but I also put a timer through, you know, the oven clock. I put a timer for 20 minutes because the duration is going to affect your brain as well. And we just don't have enough mainstream data and research to say that this is not gonna deteriorate our brain function later in the day, in the next years. So I'm very aware of it. And I told a story about our middle child who used to come home. They have, you know, Chromebooks in schools, and she used to come home for, you know, weeks and weeks at a time, just crying and complaining about her eyes being so sore, her head hurts. And so what we did, after just, you know, trying a lot of different things, I asked the principal if we can take away her Chromebook, because I think that affects her. And that's after we established that they don't have any they have okay lights for her brain. So they have LED lights. They didn't have, you know, these bright lights. It was like what seemed to be okay. But I realized that she has such a gentle nervous system. The fact that they put the projector in class, the whole time they were in class, the projector and the huge screen of everything in front of her, the whole time they were in class, including the Chromebook, that just created such a distorted nervous system for her that she used to get these headaches. Tears came down her eyes. And so we took out the Chromebook, and along with an amazing principal of their school, we just established a pen and paper routine. And every teacher that she had since knows that this child will need to be approached with pen and paper. So that doesn't mean that she doesn't get screen time at home. It is monitored by me, by us, the parents. And so I know that she's going to wear the glasses. I know she's going to be there for a limited time, and then she needs to get outside. She needs to come back. So it's very timed. I give them 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's great. It's great, like, to put that in place for our children and ourselves wherever we can.
Yes.
And when you were saying that, it also made me realize too, well, I've made this realization before, but just to bring it up, that oftentimes with my 3-year-old, if I let her watch TV in the morning, like, you know, sometimes it happens, I feel like for the rest of the day, she just feels like she is more dysregulated than when we start the day with like her, you know, creative play and, you know, really finding other ways to engage her senses than just sitting in front of the TV. And I do think that, that is talking to the same thing, that, it's not setting her nervous system up for success. So it's just something to be aware of with your children, especially when there's so many opportunities. There's so many places where we do need to get involved in their screen time activity, like school, knowing that it's there. So just having those boundaries where you can.
And those boundaries are a great segue to our next point, which is detoxify from addictive substances and behaviors. So that's a big title for what does that mean? It means that if you are that person that is used to calming down your nervous system with drinking alcohol, red wine before bedtime, any beers, falling asleep in front of the TV and such, you may want to reconsider that, because actually there are studies that are showing that it is not conducive to our health or our REM sleep at all.
Yeah. And it's such a vicious cycle, I think, that, we think we need the alcohol to wind down, or we need to just sit in front of the TV right before we go to bed, but that's setting us up for the next day when we're going to have that kind of same thing. So if you can kind of take those, like, what is my relationship to alcohol? What is my relationship to watching TV? And it's not that they're just good or bad in themselves, but it's where you find that you need to put your own personal boundaries around that to set yourself up for success.
Including caffeine. I mean, coffee can affect us for up to 36 hours. So unfortunately, we also have caffeine in energy drinks, chocolate, ice cream, and even green tea or decaffeinated drinks. So we might be ingesting caffeine way too close to our bedtime and not even know it. So just know that it can affect us up to 36 hours. And when it comes to alcohol, alcohol is a powerful suppressor of REM sleep. So drinking alcohol before bedtime does result in disrupted sleep, even though you might not realize it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it goes hand in hand many times, where it's like you do the alcohol and then you wake up and do the caffeine and then you do that. So it's like stimulant, depressant. And it's just not the best routine to be in if you find yourself in that. And I think that leads us to our next point, which is just proper nutrition. And, even when we're talking about the last point of addictive substances, that can also be foods that are leading to not being able to have a healthy nervous system response. So when we're eating lots of sugar, lots of caffeine, the alcohol, the just general things that are going to affect our physiology, like our body's response, that are not going to set us up for success. And then on the flip side of that when we are eating healthy, there are specific nutrients that especially really help with proper nervous system function. And those would include like omega-3 fatty acids. So, they're full of DHA and EPA, which are essential for developing the nervous system. And, those are found in like fatty fish, like salmon's a great source, also flaxseed, other nuts, walnuts are really high in them. And then your B vitamins, so they help to produce neurotransmitters. So, if those are depleted, they're going to not help with having a regulated nervous system. And then magnesium is a big one too. And I've seen so many resources that say that most of us are depleted in magnesium, and that it is such a critical mineral for us, and it does induce a relaxation response. And then when you're deficient in it, it can inhibit a lot of neurotransmitters that support signal transmission between the nerves. So that in and of itself is also the sleep, not being able to sleep, and the higher irritability, all of that can come into play when you're deficient.
Yeah. And when I have a client that comes to me with a headache, the first thing I check, I check three things. I check hormones, I check gluten, and I check magnesium, because often lack of magnesium can result in frequent headaches, or you can feel lack of energy, cramps in the legs, and so on and so forth. I do take magnesium before bedtime. And for the kids, I purchase magnesium flakes and I put it in their bath, or like a foot bath. I do that for my younger clients as well. I do that for my own kids. This way I make sure that they get it, or I pop a pill and I put it in their shake. So I do that as well. And I rely on magnesium in seasons of lots of stress. So I just
Mhm.
monitor my sleep. I see if I sleep, last night I was able to sleep without magnesium. And for a long time, I didn't take it at all. But then I realized I have so many stressors in my life and I do need to, calm down. And I do everything. Like, I don't work out too late in the evening because that will stimulate my nervous system. I won't be able to fall asleep till midnight.
Yeah.
So I do take magnesium before bedtime. I stopped for a while. Now I take it again. For me, I will reach to magnesium before I reach to melatonin. That's
Hmm.
just, I prefer that because I know that food is a connection point. So I don't have big dinners too close to bedtime, which is also shown by Dr. Mindy Pels, that you need to stop it 2 hours before sunset. So if you want to connect your natural melatonin, you got to stop eating dinner 2 hours before sunset, which can create like a 4 hour window before you go to bed. So I know that in that aspect, my melatonin is okay, but like recently I've been going back to magnesium a little bit more.
Yeah. I don't know specifically, but I've heard there's a lot of like some controversy in relying on melatonin as,
Yeah.
the main. Yeah. Where I think with magnesium too, it's like such a beautiful way. Like there's, Epsom salt bath. So if you want to take a bath before, it's also like getting part of that bedtime routine idea where it's like you're setting yourself up, your body up to, signal to it like, okay, it's time for bed. It's time to rest. There's also a lot of really good magnesium sprays on the market too. I
Yes.
know Symbiotica has a really great one. And it's amazing how it physically relaxes your muscles. It allows you to, you can tell a difference. Or at least I can when I do something like that. Yeah. Yeah. And then
What's the next one?
was there,
So
well,
meditation. So, oh no, the movement. So if we
yeah.
get to movement, and we mentioned in one of the other episodes, like, okay, what workout should I do? You're going to do the workout that you enjoy doing. So it can be in the aspect of ANS, the nervous system. You can do, jogging if not too close to bedtime, dancing in your living room, or, I just signed up for ballet class. I missed ballet. I decided, hey, why not? I'll
Oh,
dance.
I love it.
Yeah. Or you can, jump on the trampoline. Again, not too close to bedtime. But there are also like meditative forms of movement like yoga, tai chi, etc. So really, whatever helps you get into that mindset of, okay, I'm going into my bedtime routine now. I'm ready.
Hmm. Yeah. And it just, um, yeah, just anything, especially like that, you're kind of turning off your mind in a sense. Like, and I
Yeah.
think that's one of the huge things with exercise. It's like, or especially certain kinds, like a yoga or something that you're engaging all your senses and bringing them into your breath, is like, it's allowing your mind to turn off. And then that in itself is going to turn on that relaxation response.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then are we on I think the last one that we had,
Yeah.
which is to develop a spiritual practice, which I think if you've been listening to this podcast, you know that we're very, very
Big on
spiritually
that.
minded.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. But it's like such an all-encompassing thing. And I would love for you to tell the story of the perception, or you can say whatever else too, of the girl who, like, the I'm forgetting now the story, but essentially that like perception is everything. And I think that that's the huge thing. There's so many benefits to a spiritual practice because I think number one, just being able to have this idea that things are greater than what you can really see within yourself, and be able to kind of have that as a guiding kind of a guiding light in your life, that there's more to this realm than just what we see. But I also think that a huge, and I mean, this is kind of all encompassing of that too, but it's this idea that other people will have perceptions of us, that we can constantly, feel that we're being judged, or is this person liking what I'm doing? But like when we can turn away from that chatter and really connect with who we are, then that gets out of the picture. So it's like the idea that perception is reality, and where we can control our perception, and knowing that we might not be able to control everything that happens to us, but that we can control ultimately our reaction to it, and how much mental chatter we give it, and the story that we allow it to have and persist in ourselves is huge, as far as when we're talking of nervous system specifically.
Yeah. In fact, I believe that any disease, pain, or suffering are not just the pathways for awakening greater reality, but when we ascribe wrong mental meaning to our experience, that's when separation creates diseases. So that's what you're talking about. You're talking about an angle of perception. Our perception of what we call reality is our perception through the lens of our childhood, through the imprints of our first modeling system, our dad, our mom, if we had any growing up. And so our perception is not clear. Is it the reality? We don't know. Is the cup half full or half empty? It's up to your perception. And so this is when we introduce spiritual practices. And I do that with all my clients from the mental health facility. We really try to look at things from a broader perspective. We talk about not having just one body, but having 5 different bodies. So I always look at it, okay, we have the physical body, and this is something that allopathic medicine is really good about, treating the physical body, but not the root cause, because we also have the mental body, the thinking, the mind, and it's one of the archetypes in, quantum biology. So the mind can create a lot of malfunctioning through, again, the perception of something that seems real. What do we say to our mind? What do we block our bodies from receiving? So, for example, the super simple example is that if I am prepping my body and my realm to accept abundance, and yet in my mental body, in my mind, I'm thinking that I don't deserve to be paid, or I don't deserve to have money, then you're creating a discord in your body and a misalignment for that abundance from the universe to enter your life. And then you have the supramental body, which is the biological functions. So what comes from your body, and that this is called downward causation. So what comes from your mind can impact your body. What happens in your body will get you to a limitless bliss body, if the thoughts are aligned with your desires and your organs. So to me, practicing spirituality is an essential component of health. I say to my clients all the time, I don't want you to be like leaves in the wind, going, right to left. Whatever happened in the past, we have to be able to forgive and release, not for the other person, but for us. And once we have the connectivity to our spiritual routine, whether it's meditation or Reiki or journaling or prayer, that is our connection to the love and the light. That is our true essence. And if you build a consistency with that day in and day out, you will build a reservoir of internal strength that can take you very far in life.
So beautifully said. Yeah. And with all that we've said today, I think it's like important to note too, that there's things that we've talked on the more mental level, like the mind level, and then also like the nutrition and things like that on the physical level, and understanding that all of these things are, it's all like the different bodies are, what was the term you used? The downward
causation. Mm-hmm.
Downward causation. But you could also argue too, couldn't you, or maybe there's a thing, I mean, like there's like upward causation too, where it's like if your physical body is, if you're have like bad nutrition and you're mineral deficient, that's causing the mental things too. So you have like this beautiful, they're both informing each other.
Yes. And with the downward causation, it's the consciousness going to the brain, going to the cells, going to the molecules, going to the atoms, going to the particles. And so you can ask, why are you consuming food that is harmful to your cells? What is your mind telling you? Are you not worthy of health? Are you setting yourself up for failure because of any genetic mutation you have in your family? Do you not feel that you're loved enough? So you need to consume, the fast food, whatever, del taco at midnight.
Yeah.
So I believe that there is a systematic pattern behind what we do physically. We just have to crack it.
Yeah, so true. With you saying that, it's like it does go both ways, but in many ways, the upward trumps everything, because once you can understand the thing behind the thing of what you're doing, then
so it's gonna go downward.
Okay
from top to bottom.
Makes sense. And that's how you create lasting change in your life, really. Like that's why diet approaches that are like super rigid and like just do this and this, and you're not addressing any of the mental stuff, are oftentimes going to lead to the same results, backsliding.
And you'll see it with addictions, right? You'll see it with addictions. If it starts with the physical body, if it's an upward causation, if it goes up from our body up to our consciousness, then you can't interfere the pattern. You can't break the wave pattern that sets you up for failure. But if you start with consciousness, with a downward causation going, up to the bottom, then you're trying different modalities, because holding that cigarette that you're addicted to, or shooting something in your vein, for heavier addictions, this is an automatic thing that is been done many, many, many years. So how do you break that pattern? If you go to AA meeting, you have all these steps, the 12 steps, and part of the steps are here. They're in the mind, they're in the body. They have a step for forgiveness. There are certain steps in order for you to break that pattern, so you won't have to reach for what you think is loving you back. So you don't have to reach for that destructive behavior that haven't served you all these years and will not ever serve you. Yeah.
Well, and that's where too, like oftentimes, especially when it's an addiction that has that much of a hold. And I know that like AA is very rooted in this. It's like you have to surrender to a higher power. You have to allow. And so that's where, the spiritualness really, really comes in, and is in many ways can trump everything, because once you lean into that power, you have like this new energy source that's really working in your direction and in your favor.
That's right. And you find purposefulness within your life, within your existence. And Bruce Lipton talks about it all the time. He talks about how new biology defines thoughts and attitudes and beliefs that then create conditions in our body and establishes our own particular special place in the world.
So true.
I
love how all of our discussions seem to always move back to like it's like importance of spirit. But it is
back to spirit.
It is.
Back to spirit.
It is so important. Okay, anything else that we want to end with or that we missed?
No. I mean, that was our attempt to give you something briefer, more manageable, 10 tips for
Yeah, yeah. Even though I feel like they all, which of course they do, like they all overlap in a beautiful
Yeah,
way. And so, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But hopefully those are helpful. And like I said at the beginning, hopefully you can take these as not something to like add to your to-do list or, oh my gosh, now I need to really, really focus on resetting my nervous system. But it's more like, okay, how can I just naturally incorporate some of these things into my day?
yeah. And tap into one thing. Decide that this week or for the next 2 weeks, you're going
Exactly.
to try one thing and then
Yes.
see, try, track, and see. See if it
Mm-hmm.
helps you. If it helps you, continue and add on another one. Before you know it, this is going to be your automatic routine.
Yep. Yep. 100%. All right. Well, thank
All
you all
right.
for listening. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.